Good morning, guys. In the last session, we started our discussion related to what is Route 53 service in the AWS and why we need to go for Route 53. Route 53 is a DNS service in the AWS cloud, which is used to map our applications to the domain name. So when you deploy the application in the Linux machine, by using public IP, we are accessing that application. Okay, but we cannot give IP address for the customers to access our application. So that's where domain mapping is required. So we need to purchase a domain and we need to map our application to the domain. To do that, we are going to use a service called Route 53 service available in the AWS cloud. All right. And the next one, we started our discussion related to Elastic Beanstalk. What is the purpose of this Elastic Beanstalk service in the AWS cloud? Elastic Beanstalk is a platform as a service. This providing platform as a service, nothing but to deploy one Java application. What is the process we need to follow in the AWS cloud? To deploy one Java application in the AWS cloud, we need to create a network for that. Then we need to create a security groups for that. Inbound rules we need to enable. We need to set up the virtual machines. Okay. And we need to install the Java software. We need to install the servers. Then we need to deploy our application. So a lot of work we need to do in order to run our application in the AWS cloud. A lot of work we need to do in order to do this setup in the AWS cloud. Okay, so here instead of we are doing all these things, I want one ready-made platform to run my application. I want one ready-made platform to run my application. So that's where in the AWS cloud there is a service called Beanstalk. What that Beanstalk is going to do, that Beanstalk service is going to provide the platform to run our application. The Beanstalk is going to provide the platform which is used to run our application. Okay, good. It is going to provide the platform to run our application. What is the meaning of a platform to run the application? It will take care of the virtual machines. It will take care of the network. It will take care of the security groups. It will take care of the load balancer. What all the resources are required in order to run our application, whatever the infrastructure that is required to run application, those things will be provided by AWS cloud. So that's where it is called as platform as a service. So it will provide the platform which is required to run our application. It will provide the platform which is required to run our application. All right. So guys, can anyone tell me what is the difference between application deployment normally and application deployment with the Beanstalk? Can anyone tell me what is the difference between application deployment normally and application deployment with the Beanstalk?
Whatever the resources we are providing manually, but whenever you go to the Beanstalk, it's provide the platform for all this.
Right. If you want to deploy the application manually, then you need to do lot of work. You need to create lot of resources in the AWS cloud. Then only you can deploy your application. If you go for the Beanstalk, whatever the resources are required, those resources will be provided by AWS cloud only. Okay, so this is one thing. But here guys, there is one problem available in the AWS. So there is one problem available in the AWS. So what is that problem in the AWS? So I'm going to deploy my application in the AWS cloud by using Beanstalk. Okay, so suppose I want to deploy my application by using Beanstalk. If I deploy that by using Beanstalk, it will provide the platform. I will just upload my code. Okay, just upload our code into AWS cloud platform. This is my Beanstalk platform and I am uploading my code. So when I do this, what AWS will do? AWS will create network. Okay, AWS will create virtual machine. AWS will manage server, AWS will manage load balancer, AWS will manage auto scaling group. So all the resources which are required to run our application, AWS is going to take care. So that's why it is called as platform as a service. It is called as platform as a service. So you just need to upload your code. You no need to bother about the machines. You no need to bother about load balancer. You no need to bother about the security group. So everything will be provided by AWS cloud only. Everything will be provided by AWS cloud only. Okay, good. So here, when we go with this Beanstack platform, it is going to deploy our application. Now assume that my application is running in the EC2 instance. That EC2 instance is created by Beanstack platform. EC2 instance created by Beanstack platform. So for the EC2 instance, for network no charge available, but for EC2 charge will be available, for load balancer charge will be available, for auto scaling group also charge will be available. So this Beanstack is free. The Beanstack service is free. But when we use Beanstack, it is creating some resources. EC2 instances will be created, load balancer will be created, auto scaling group will be created. For those resources, charges will be applicable. For those resources, charges will be applicable. So how the charges are going to happen? How the charges are going to happen? What all the resources we are using as part of the Beanstack, for those resources charges will be applicable. So how many EC2 instances is creating, what is the load balancer it is creating, okay, what is the load balancer it is creating, what are the EC2 instances are creating, auto scaling group is creating. For these things the charges will be applicable, guys. For these things charges will be applicable. All right, now here when you go for this Beanstack platform, when our application is running, so for all these resources charges will be applicable. For all these things charges will be applicable. Okay, fine. But let's understand that, so in this EC2 instance our application is running, the Beanstack platform is available, our application is running in the EC2 virtual machine. Fine. If customers are accessing our application, then that means our business is running successfully. Customers are accessing our application. If customers are accessing our application, business is happening, then I will get the revenue. Then I can pay the bill for the AWS cloud, because AWS provided a platform for me. In this platform, they have created all the resources for me. They created the network, they created the machines, they created the servers, they created the load balancer, they created the auto scaling group. So all these things they have created in order to run our application. That is fine. I'm running my application in the EC2 instance. Customers are accessing my application. Okay, fine. Business is running. I'm getting the revenue. Then I can pay the bill for the AWS. Okay. So how the bill will happen in the AWS? It is pay as you go. Hourly billing will be generated. So EC2 instance is running, load balancer is running, auto scaling group is running. So hourly basis bill will be generated for every hour the AWS cloud generating the bill amount. For every hour AWS cloud generating the bill amount. So hourly basis bill will be generated. At the month end we need to pay the bill amount. So how many hours you are running the machines, for how many hours you are running the load balancer, for how many hours you are running the auto scaling group. So on hourly basis you need to pay the bill amount, which is called pay as you go model. Okay, that is fine. Let's talk a negative scenario. My application is deployed by using Beanstack. That means all the platform AWS provided, I have deployed my application, but customers are not coming to my application. Nobody, my application is not that much famous in the market. People are not using my application. Okay, no requests are coming to my application. There is no business, but my application is running in the AWS cloud. EC2 instance is running, load balancer is available, auto scaling group is available, everything is there, the setup is there, platform is available, application is deployed, but customers are not accessing my application. If customers are not accessing my application, there is no business. There is no business. Then do I need to pay the bill for the AWS, or bill will be generated, bill will not be generated?
Bill will be generated.
Nobody, my application is running, but people are not accessing my application. So bill will be generated or bill will not be generated?
Generated.
Bill will be generated. Why bill will be generated?
Because we are using these services now.
Yes, we are using the services. So even though if customers are not accessing, that is your problem. But AWS is giving the services for you. AWS EC2 instances are running. AWS load balancer is running. AWS auto scaling group is running. Hourly basis bill will be generated, but customers are not coming to your application. Even though if customers are not coming to your application, you have to pay the bill amount. If customers are not coming to your application, still you have to pay the bill amount. So then is there any problem in this scenario? Guys, is there any problem in this scenario?
Created infrastructure would be unrewarded, sir, because if there is no use, then revenue would be getting lost from the by building it in AWS.
Right, right. Any problem, guys? We are using AWS platform in order to run our application. Application is running, but nobody is accessing. If nobody is accessing, then our business is not there. Even though business is not there, the resources are getting used. So we have to do the bill. We have to pay the bill amount. So here, as a customer, we are going to lose our money. Unnecessarily, we are paying the money to AWS cloud, even though our application is not getting accessed by the customers. The resources are running in the AWS cloud. So for those resources, pay as you go model pricing is applicable. And our bill amount is getting generated, and we have to pay the bill amount. Are you guys able to understand what is the problem? When you go for, there is an advantage with the bean stack and there is a disadvantage with the bean stack. What is the advantage with the bean stack, guys?
It is provide the platform to deploy the.
Yes, the advantage is you no need to configure everything to run your application. They will provide you a ready-made platform to run your application. So they will use the resources to make your platform ready. You just upload your code and run your application. Fine. What is the disadvantage? If nobody is accessing our application, still their resources are in the running mode. Hourly basis bill will be generated. Pay as you go model is applicable. If your application is accessing by the customers, if you are getting the money, then no problem, you can pay the bill amount. Your application is running, but nobody is accessing your application, then unnecessarily you need to pay the bill for the AWS cloud. Are you able to understand the advantage and disadvantage with the bean stack? Are you guys able to understand the advantage and disadvantage with the bean stack?
Yes.
Come on, guys. You got the clarity. What is the advantage and what is the disadvantage?
Yes.
I'm not getting the response.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
One
sir.
clarification.
Yes,
So
sir.
even if we use a thing EC2, again, thing AC also, it will be billed, right?
Yes, bill will be in the both scenarios. Bill will be generated. In this scenario, you are not setting up the platform. There, you need to set up the platform. That is the difference. In the both scenarios, bill will be common.
Okay, okay. So if you're creating separate EC2, we can go with our, I think here also we can go with the configuration of the VM, right?
Correct.
Micro or whatever is there. Okay,
Right.
so same will be there, right? The bill will
Yes.
be,
Bill
okay.
will be there. Right, guys. So to avoid this problem, AWS introduced one concept called serverless computing. Okay, to avoid the problem with the beanstalk or normal EC2 instances, if you create a beanstalk platform, if you use hourly basis bill will be generated. Hourly basis bill will be generated. Even though people are not using your application, you have to pay the bill. Even though people are not accessing your application, you have to pay the bill amount. Okay, to avoid this problem, AWS introduced a concept called serverless computing. What is the meaning of serverless computing? Serverless computing means run the application without thinking about the server. So as of now, earlier what we have done, either we need to create the EC2 instance. EC2 instance is called as one server. In that we need to run the application. So we can set up the EC2 machine, we can install the softwares, and we can run the application. Then that is called as a server. That is called server. In which machine we are running the application, that machine is called as a server. So if you don't want to set up that server, you can go for the Beanstack. Then Beanstack will set up the server. In that server, we can just upload the code and we can run that application. That means we need to bother about the servers. That is nothing but EC2 instance. So here, what AWS is telling is, if you go with normal EC2 instance or Beanstack platform, the pricing model is pay as you go model. Hourly basis bill will be generated, whether your application is accessing by the customers or not, whether you are getting the business or not. AWS will not consider that. AWS will check how many hours you are using their infrastructure, how many hours you are running their instances. Okay, based on that, the bill will be generated. So with this, some customers are getting the loss because their application is not accessing by the people. So still they have to pay the bill amount for the AWS cloud. So here there are some drawbacks here and customers are facing some problems. To avoid this problem, AWS introduced a concept called serverless computing. So what is the meaning of serverless computing? Serverless computing means you run the application without thinking about the servers. Serverless computing means you run the application without thinking about the server. So here, when you upload your code, AWS will take care of the servers to run our application. Earlier, either we need to manage the server or Beanstack will manage the server. But when you go for serverless computing, AWS will take care of the servers required to run our application. Okay, so here the advantage is AWS is using lambdas concept to implement serverless computing. AWS lambdas are used to implement serverless computing. Okay, so by using AWS lambdas, we can run our code. Sir, what is the advantage with this AWS lambdas? So first thing, serverless computing. Some people will think serverless computing means application will be executed without server. No, that is wrong. Serverless computing does not mean that your application will execute without server. The meaning of this one is serverless computing means you run the application without thinking about the server. You no need to think about the server. You just upload your code. AWS will take care of the server which is required to run your application. So that is the meaning of serverless computing. How can we achieve this serverless computing? To achieve the serverless computing, we are going to use a concept called AWS lambdas. In the AWS, there is a service called lambdas service is available. Using this AWS lambdas concept, we can implement serverless computing. Using AWS lambdas, we can implement serverless computing for our project. Are you guys clear with my point? Are you guys clear with my point?
Yes, yes, yes.
Serverless computing means run the application without thinking about the server. AWS will take care of the servers required to run our application. AWS lambdas are used to implement this serverless computing concept. AWS lambdas works based on pay as you use model. AWS lambdas works based on pay as you use model. So earlier we have seen pay as you go model. Now this is serverless computing works based on pay as you use model. So what is the meaning of pay as you go and pay as you use? Right. So pay as you go is available, pay as you use is available. Pay as you go. And here we have pay as you use. Pay as you go and pay as you use. When you go for pay as you go, the bill will be generated hourly billing. Hourly billing. So that means if resources are running, then bill will be generated. If resources are running, then bill will be generated. Right? So customers are accessing, the application is accessing or not will not be considered. Application getting requests or not will not be considered. Application getting requests or not will not be considered. So this is pay as you go model. So EC2 instances will work based on the pay as you go model. Load balancer will work based on the pay as you go model. Auto scaling group will work based on pay as you go model. Beanstack platform resources will work based on pay as you go model. Hourly billing will be available. If resources are running, then bill will be generated. Application getting the requests or not will not be considered. If resources are getting used, if the resources are running, then bill will be generated. Here, EC2 instances and Beanstack platform will work based on pay as you go model. So here, when it is pay as you go model, who will get more benefit? AWS will get more benefit or customers will get more benefit?
AWS.
AWS will get more benefit. Why the AWS is getting more benefit?
If the customer traffic is coming or not, the bill will be generated.
Yes. So customers application is accessing or not, that will not be considered. If the resources are running, then bill will be generated. So AWS will get more benefit and customers are having some drawbacks here. So to overcome this problem, AWS introduced a concept called serverless computing. What is the meaning of serverless computing? Serverless computing means run the application without thinking about the server. Run the application without thinking about the server. AWS will take care of servers required to run our application. AWS lambdas are used to implement this serverless computing, and this AWS lambda works based on pay as you use model. Pay as you go is different, pay as you use is different. Pay as you use means the advantage with this concept is, guys, our application will be executed by using AWS Lambda. Okay, we are going to create AWS Lambda. Using this AWS Lambda, then our application code will be executed. The advantage with the AWS Lambda is if a request comes to the application, then if a request comes to the Lambda, then the Lambda is going to execute our code. Whenever a request comes to the AWS Lambda, then Lambda is going to execute our code. If the code is executed, then only bill will be generated. If your code is executed for 1 minute, then the bill will be generated only for 1 minute. If the request comes, the code is executed for 10 minutes, then the bill will be generated only for the 10 minutes of time. Today, there is no request for our application. Today, our code is not executed. If code is not executed, then bill will not be generated. Are you guys able to follow me? What is the meaning of this lambdas concept? AWS lambdas are used to implement serverless computing in the cloud. So serverless computing means you run your code without thinking about the server. Servers will be taken care by lambdas. Whenever the request comes to the lambda, then lambda will run our code. If the code is executed, then only bill will be generated. If code is not executed, then bill will not be generated. That means if the request comes, then only the code will execute. If code is executed for 1 minute, then the bill will be generated for only 1 minute. If code is executed for 10 minutes, then the bill will be generated only for 10 minutes of time. So if our business is running, then only we need to pay the bill amount. If the business is not running, then we no need to do the bill payment. Are you able to understand? What is the advantage with the lambdas concept here?
Sir, one doubt.
Yeah.
While we are deploying any application in server,
Yes.
like in Lambda, that time once deploy means application always running. Correct?
No, application will not be executed always. Lambda's architecture is different. You upload your code. So whenever the request comes, then Lambda will run your code. If the code is executed, then only bill will be generated.
A server, once a request will go, then only server will start.
Yeah, so whenever request comes, then only server will start in the runtime. They will use a containers concept in the runtime. Once your request processing is completed, then that container will be deleted.
Okay, so when as per request, the service will be like
Yes.
run.
Yes, right.
Okay, sir.
That is
Got it.
called pay as you use model. So if the
Okay.
requests are coming to your application, then only code will execute. If the requests are not coming to your application, then code will not execute. That is pay as you use. Pay as you use means you pay for what you use. You pay for what you use. Bill will be generated. Bill will be generated when the code is executed. When the code is executed. If no requests to our application, if no request to our application, then no bill.
Sir, another small doubt. In case
Yeah.
of EC2 configuration and bin stack, so
Mhm.
bill amount will be different from two approach or both will be same?
Same
bill?
only. If you are creating EC2 manually, or if you are using bin stack, in the bin stack also EC2 will be used, right? Then
Yeah.
hourly bill will be applicable for that. So in the
Same.
normal approach, same bill. In the normal approach, you create the EC2, you install all the softwares and you deploy your code. When you go for bin stack, you just deploy your code. It will take care of the machine's configurations and all. But bill will be same.
Okay, sir. Yeah.
But
Got
when
it.
you go for Lambda, if your code is executed, then only you need to pay the bill amount. If code is not executed, then you no need to pay the bill amount.
Yeah, serverless concept is very good, sir.
Yeah, serverless computing. What is the
Yeah.
meaning of serverless computing? Serverless computing in the sense, you run your code without thinking about the server.
Yes.
AWS will take care of the servers to run our application. AWS lambdas are used to implement this serverless computing concept, and the lambdas works based on pay as you go, pay as you use model. So pay as you use means
Sir,
yes, sir.
is there any delay in the response, sir? Because
No, sir.
whenever
No.
request comes, then only the server runs and the application runs, right?
No delay, sir. No delay. I will show you the proof. Pay as you use means you pay the bill. You pay the bill if your code is executed. If your code is executed. If we are not getting any requests to our application, if we are not getting any requests to our application, then we no need to pay the bill.
Sir,
If we are not getting any requests to our application, then we no need to pay the bill amount. How the AWS lambdas are going to work? Let's observe this one. Let's go to AWS. Let me log in into the AWS cloud. Go to the AWS. Let me log in into AWS cloud account. let's go to a service called Lambdas. Okay, so once you logged in into the AWS cloud, you search here with Lambdas. So you can see Lambda. What is the tagline they are giving for Lambda? What is
Run
the
code,
tagline they are giving for the
run
Lambda?
code without thinking about servers.
Lambda is used for serverless computing. They are saying that you run your code without thinking about the server. Open this Lambda. How the Lambda is going to execute, just observe. How the Lambda is going to execute, just observe. So AWS Lambda lets you run the code without thinking about the servers. And can you read this point here? Can you read what AWS is telling about the Lambda?
We can only
AWS Lambda lets you run code without thinking about server. You pay only for the compute time that you consume. There is no charge when your code is not running. So that means if our application getting the request, then only code will be executed. If code is executed, then only you pay the bill. If your code is not running, then there is no bill. If your code is executed, then only bill will be generated. If your code is not executing, then bill will not be generated. So you can run any type of application virtually with zero administration. You can run any type of application virtually with zero administration.
So the service is used for small scale business, Ashok?
Yes, sir. Generally for mobile applications, this concept will be used. To deploy the mobile applications, people are using these Lambda functions.
So it will not create the entire application. It only the backend or any, I think, standalone code only can be deployed.
Yeah, maybe even web applications also you can deploy, but lot of maintenance will be there when you deploy. Generally, so small scale applications, mobile applications, we can deploy by using Lambda. When you have a large scale applications like banking applications and all, it will be difficult to manage them with the Lambda.
Okay. So is it possible to run, to keep the code anywhere and call here?
Yes, sir.
Yes, something. Okay.
So you got the basic overview. What is serverless computing and what is pay as you use model?
Yeah, got it, Ashok. So large scale applications, so usually how does it work?
We will
Ashok?
deploy them by using Kubernetes.
Kubernetes, okay.
Yeah. So Lambdas, I hope you understood what is Lambda, why we are going for Lambda. Lambda lets you run code without thinking about the server. You pay only for what you use. If your code is executed, then only bill will be generated. If your code is not executed, then bill will not be generated. If your code is executed, then only.
Yes. Yeah, sure. Can you give any real-time scenario, like example, one or two example in banking or e-commerce website?
Sure, sir. Sure. Good. Now see here how the Lambda is going to work. When you go to the Lambda dashboard, you just observe how the Lambda is going to execute. How the Lambda is going to execute. Let's understand that with the practical scenario. They will give you one example to show you how the Lambda will work in the practical manner. Lambda dashboard, Lambda, AWS Lambda execution flow. Somewhere Here only should give the option. Yeah. So once you open this AWS Lambda page, there you can see. So for example, this is our Java code, guys. This is a Java code. Click on run. So this is Java code is executing. There is a method. This method is giving hello world. Just it is printing hello from Lambda. So when you want to execute your code by using Lambda, every class should implement AWS Lambda provided interfaces. AWS SDK will be available. So if you see, can you see this Java class? This is Java code we are going to execute by using Lambda. So this is my Java code, which is implementing request handler interface. Request handler interface is a predefined interface provided by AWS Lambda. That means AWS dependencies we need to add in our project. AWS dependencies we need to add in our project. So using that dependency, we are going to implement the interface and we need to override the method. So this is the Java class that we need to create. Then run this code. Yes, whenever I execute this code, I'm getting hello from Lambda. Lambda response. How the Lambda is going to execute now? You see here. Assume that this is my Lambda, which is used to execute our Java code. If our Java code is executed, then we are going to get the output as hello from Lambda. So this is a Lambda function. This is the syntax of the Lambda. Okay, this is the logo of the Lambda. Whenever a request comes to the Lambda, now you see there is a container getting created. With that container, we are getting some output. So this is serverless computing. We are just giving our code to the Lambda, and Lambda will take care of the servers to run the application. And whenever the request comes, then only Lambda will execute. If the Lambda is executed, then container will be created in order to run the application. How much time that container will run? Only for that much time the bill will be generated. Now, if I'm sending more requests, if I am clicking on this one, then more requests are going. When more requests are going, more containers are creating. Now, can you see? More containers are available. If I stop sending the request, slowly the containers count is getting deleted. So this is how the Lambda will work in the AWS. When more requests will come, more containers will be created in the runtime to run the code. So how much time your container will execute? For that much time the bill amount will be generated. Next, scale this Lambda seamlessly. Now see, observe. So how much bill will be generated for our Lambda function? So if I am keep on sending the requests, the number of requests are increasing. When the number of requests are increasing, then slowly the containers are increasing. When the containers are increasing, then slowly the cost is also increasing. So that means if your code is executed, then only bill will be generated. If your code is not executed, then bill will not be generated. So this is how Lambda will work in the AWS. See here, scale seamlessly. Lambda scales up and down automatically to handle your workloads. If more number of requests are coming, then more containers will be created by Lambda. Okay, you don't pay anything when your code is not running.
Sir,
Yes,
Lambda also provide the auto scaling load balancer. All of
we
these
don't
things.
know, but we can't see that. They will provide the auto scaling. That is the reason you can see here. When more number of requests are coming, the containers are increasing. That is auto scaling only, right?
Right.
You can see more containers are created. So if the requests are reduced, then the containers are reduced.
Okay. I understood.
But here,
Sir, even to configure our code, did we need to create any Lambda function?
yes, sir, we need to develop the Java program by following the AWS Lambda syntax, and that code we need to configure in the AWS Lambda for the execution.
Okay.
Okay.
Sir, one doubt.
Yes.
Is it request based?
Request based only, sir. Correct.
In case of schedulers, right? Scheduler jobs, there won't be any external request, right?
No, for these scheduler jobs and all, those are the backend up. I mean, those are batch jobs. For the batch jobs, we don't use this Lambda.
Okay. Yeah.
So who writes the code?
Sorry?
Development team or DevOps team?
Who?
Who writes that code?
Developers. So these Lambda functions, developers will write this code. Developers will give the code to the cloud team. Then cloud team is going to configure them in the. I will show you how to configure the code in the Lambda.
Okay,
Sir,
developer
only we
itself
have
adds
jar
the
or war file.
lambda,
One by
import the
one,
lambda
guys.
statement.
Cloud team will create the Lambda statement. You will write the code and you will give the code in the jar format. Cloud team will configure the jar file for the Lambda.
Okay, sir, thank you.
DevOps team can use Lambda.
Both developers and DevOps team will work together to configure our serverless applications. We should write the code. They will configure the code for the execution.
Like I was asking, they can use that Lambda service with Terraform. They can do this service also.
Yes, they can create the Lambdas with the Terraform also. And manually also can create with the Terraform also they can create.
Sir, it is execute only a Java code. What about the database?
Any code, sir.
How to connect database?
Any type of code we can execute.
So it will automatically connect with database.
In that code, you need to write that logic. If your application want to connect with the database, everything should be there in your code.
So how will be installed automatically? Suppose I have connected with MySQL or Mongo and all.
Sir, when you are connecting with the database, your database will be there in the RDS. In your code, you will configure RDS properties and you will connect with that, right?
So, but this is AWS. So, what is the relation between that EC2 and that AWS?
Your question is not correct.
I mean, suppose EC2 instance we have install RDBMS and all. So this is AWS different instance, right, sir?
Yeah, if the database should be different, AWS should be different. The database should be in the different database you can set up in the EC2 and database you can set up in the RDS. So in the you will develop one application. In that application, you will configure your database properties where your database is available. Then your code can connect with the database properties. The Lambda will take care of only your code execution part.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. Fine, guys. So now let us see. I'm going to execute one small Spring Boot application by using AWS Lambda. So this is a serverless computing concept. Serverless computing means run the application without thinking about the servers. AWS will take care of the servers required to run the project. Now, I have one small jar file, guys. This jar file belongs to Spring Boot application. So I will give you this jar file. I will show you how this jar file, this Spring Boot project, this is normal Java project which is packaged as a jar file. AWS Java AWS Lambda jar file. So this project is developed by using AWS Lambda. Now I want to execute this application by using Lambda. Okay, so let me take this jar. Let me keep it in my system. Some jars, right? So AWS.
This is a RESTful API,
normal
API
Java
only.
applications are not REST API. So it
Sir,
is a normal application. Whatever you have seen here, right, in the AWS Lambdas. So whenever you go for Lambda concept, how the Java code you have seen here, the Lambda service, if you see, so if you see the Java code, so same class I have created. Okay, so I have created one Java class. That Java class is implementing the request handler interface, and I'm overriding the handle request method. In that, my logic is available. So like this, I have created one Java class, and that Java project I packaged as a jar file. Now I want to run my Java project by using Lambda. I don't want to go with EC2 instance creation because EC2 instance will charge based on hourly basis. Pay as you go model applicable for the EC2. Okay, if I go with the Beanstalk also will create the EC2 instances, hourly billing will be available. So I want to use Lambda because if my code is executed, then only bill should be generated. If my code is not executed, then bill should not be generated. So for that, in the AWS, there is a concept called serverless computing concept is available. So now let me go and use that serverless computing concept. So when you want to run your application by using AWS Lambda concept, first you need to develop that project. First, you need to develop that project by using AWS SDK dependencies. Okay. Now I have the jar file. I will give the jar file for you guys. So running the Java code with the AWS Lambda. So the first thing, my application is a Java based application. Let me go and create one Lambda function. Okay. Author from scratch. So do you want to create the function from the scratch? Yes, I want to create the Lambda function from the basic. Name of the function, you can give any name for the function. Ashok IT Java function. Okay. Runtime, that means your code is developed by using which technology? Is it a Node.js application, or is it Java application, or is it Python application? So what is the technology you use to develop this application? I developed up my application by using Java. So runtime I'm configuring as Java. Okay, fine. Next one, advanced settings, enable function URL. So whenever we are creating a function, Lambda function, how to access that Lambda function? To access that Lambda function, we are enabling a function URL. We are enabling a function URL, default execution role. So create a new role with the basic Lambda permissions, use existing role, create a new policy, create a new role with the basic Lambda functions. So I'm selecting author from scratch. I'm giving the function name. I'm choosing my runtime as Java 11. Permissions. So create a new role with the basic Lambda permissions. Okay. Then next one, enable function URL. Okay. Enable function URL, nothing but, so I want to access this function by using its URL. Authentication type, currently I'm not using any authentication. No authentication, that means anybody should be able to access my Lambda function. Select enable function URL and select authentication as none. Then click on create function. So with this, my Lambda function getting created. So now with this Lambda function, I want to execute my code. Yes. So with this, my Lambda function got created. For this Lambda function, one URL also generated. When I click on that URL, I'm getting some response from that. The response is hello from Lambda. So this is the URL of my Lambda function. So when I send the request to this URL, then only my code will execute and it will give you a message, hello from Lambda. So just basic Lambda function is created. As of now, our code is not uploaded. Can you guys click on that URL and see? Can
Yes,
you
sir,
guys
it
click
is
on that
working.
URL and see? Is it working or not?
Yes, it is working.
It is working, but in that Lambda function currently, our jar file is not available. It is executing the default Java code, which is giving just a hello from Lambda. Now, whenever you hit this URL, then the Lambda function is executing. That Lambda function is executing default Java code, which will give hello from Lambda. Now I want to configure my application with this Lambda function. So whenever the request comes to that Lambda function URL, I want to execute the Java class which is available in my jar file. Okay, go to that Lambda function, code is available, code properties available, code source. So as of now, our code is not uploaded. So default code is executed. Now upload our code. Okay, code source is available. Go to upload from. Where is your code? So your code is available in the S3 bucket, or your code is available in a normal jar file in the local system. My code is available in the jar file. Select the jar file, upload that jar file. So I have taken the jar file here. I will give this jar file, guys. So AWS Lambda jar is available. I'm selecting my jar file, click on save. With this, my code is executed. So in this code, what are the runtime settings available? So in that code, one Java class I have created, that is the runtime handler. That means whenever the request comes to the Lambda function, which Java class should be executed. My Java class is available in a package called in.ashokit, and my Java class name is Lambda handler. My Java class name is Lambda handler. So this is the package name of my Java class, and this is the class name, Lambda handler. Click on save. With this, I have created a lambda function. I generated a URL for the lambda, and for that lambda function, I have configured my handler. I uploaded my code which is available in the jar file, and I configure handler for this lambda function. Now send the request to that lambda URL. Now can you see previous output, this output same, or they are different? Previous output, this output same or different?
Different.
Earlier the default code is executed, now our code is executing. So there is a Java class, that Java class name is lambda handler. In that Java class I have created the logic. So whenever you send the request to this lambda URL, lambda function is executing. That lambda function will execute our code by creating the container. So is there any response is there any delay in the response, or the response is coming very quickly?
Response coming very quickly.
Is there any delay in the response, or the response is coming very quickly?
No delay.
The response coming very quickly. So what about the servers to run this application? What about the load balancer? What about the auto scaling group?
They are
Who will
automatically
take care of all these things?
lambdas.
Lambdas will take care of this. Serverless computing. So you run your code without thinking about the server. Do I need to think about EC2 instances now?
No.
Do I need to think about EC2 instance? Do I need to think about load balancer? Do I need to think about auto scaling? Do I need to think about security groups? Do I need to think about any resources in the AWS? No. That's why it is called serverless computing. That means run your code without thinking about the server. You just upload your code and you just create a lambda function. You just create a lambda function. You upload your code and you configure your handler for which lambda function, which class should be executed. So whenever you send the request to that lambda function URL, then your code will be executed in the runtime. So dynamically, lambda is creating a container to run our application. If more number of requests are coming, then more containers will be created. If less number of requests are coming, less containers will be created. If your container is executing, if your code is executing, then only you pay the bill. If your code is executing, then only you pay the bill. If your code is not executing, then you no need to pay the bill. So that is the advantage with serverless computing. So how we have executed this lambda function here, guys? I have taken one jar file, right? So create a lambda function with Java 11 as an environment. Okay, then upload the jar file in code source. Create a lambda function with the Java 11 environment. Okay, enable function URL. Enable function URL. Select enable function URL option. Select enable function URL option, so that for your lambda function one URL will be generated. Okay, select the authentication as none, so that you can access the lambda function directly. Once this step is completed, we created a lambda function with Java 11 as a runtime. So how we are creating a lambda function? You just go to lambda dashboard. Currently one lambda function is available. So you can create one more lambda function also. Create a function author from scratch. Okay. So when you are creating a lambda function, select author from scratch. That means from the very basic we are creating the function. Give the function name. Runtime we are selecting. It is a Java application. So Java 11 I have selected. And here I'm using advanced settings. Enable function URL. Then immediately auth type we are selecting as none. Okay. Select auth type as none. Right. So like this, we are creating a lambda function. Once the lambda function got created, then you just upload the jar file in the code source. So I will give the jar. Later we will develop that jar file. We will create that application. Okay, what we need to do? We need to create one Maven project. That Maven project, I think it is already there in my GitHub. Let me show you. I think it is not there, guys. I will upload this into Git repository. How that application we have created. Simple, a Maven project I created. I added AWS Lambda dependency in that, and I packaged that project as a jar file. Upload the jar file in the code source section. So once the jar file is uploaded, then configure handler in the runtime. That means for this Lambda function, which code should be executed. Okay, so my class name is like this. This is the class name available in the jar file. Jar file contains the class name in.ashoka.lambda handler. Method name is handle request. Handler syntax. You need to configure like this. Class name colon method name. That is the handler syntax. You need to configure like this. Okay. So class name colon method name. That is how we are configuring that handler. Right. So if you go to our existing Lambda function also, you can see that how we configure the handler. Right. So edit the handler. This is in.ashoka.lambda handler we are configuring. Here you can configure that method name. What is the method name is available? Handle request is the method name. Click on save. So then when you click on this URL, that is executing our code. Welcome to Ashoka IT. This is invoked from AWS Lambda. This message is coming from my Java class, which is available in the jar file. Okay. So I hope you got the clarity. What is Lambda function and what is the benefit of the Lambda function? I hope you got the clarity. What is Lambda function and what is the benefit of this Lambda function? I'm going to give you the jar file for your Lambda practice. So I have that jar. In that jar, the Java code is available.
The jar is Maven project or Java project?
Maven project, sir, because we need the dependency, right? It is a Maven project. Guys, I have uploaded the jar file in the portal. Can you check it? You can download the jar file now. Can you check it? You can download the jar file now.
Yes, Ashok, I'm able to.
You're able to download the jar, right?
Yes.
So you can practice Lambda function. You can just go to the Lambda service in the AWS. You create one function by selecting these options. Then you upload that jar file in the code source section. Then you configure the handler. Then you can hit the function URL. Then it will be executed. Can you do that now? 5 minutes of time. Can you create a Lambda function to run that jar? These are the steps we need to follow. Can you please create a Lambda function to run your code and send me your function URL in the chat box. Make it quick, guys.
One question, please.
Yes.
Yeah. So suppose the interviewer asks us, how do you deploy your code? So this will be our answer.
Sir, there are multiple ways to deploy. One is you can take EC2 instance and you can install all the softwares and you can deploy. That is one option. Second option, you can deploy by using Beanstalk. And third option, you can deploy the code by using Lambda. Third option. And fourth option. So we are going to deploy the applications by using Docker and Kubernetes containers. So at the end of the course, you will get the clarity on all the options and which option is suitable for your project.
Okay, so I guess in some project have multiple jar also can be present now.
Yes, sir. When you have multiple projects, multiple Lambda functions you will create. Currently, I created one Lambda function. You can create multiple functions for every Java class. You can create one function.
Sir, this is not suitable for the microservice architecture.
You can do that also, sir. Microservices also you can execute with the Lambda.
And also one more doubt I have, sir. So actually, when we are developing the RESTful API, then we are not configuring the AWS SDK dependency.
Yeah, if you want, so that means if you want to execute your REST API with the Lambda, then you need to configure that SDK. If you want to execute normally, then you don't need to configure that.
Then the entire code will be not same.
No.
You need to change.
Yes. So we will see in our project now, one microservice I will execute with Lambda also.
Okay.
Hello, sir.
Yeah. Hi.
So in real time, large scale applications are deployed using Elastic Beanstalk or manually.
No, sir, manually, sir. By using Kubernetes, we are going to deploy the large scale applications.
Okay, sir. So Jenkins used or not?
Jenkins will be used to automate the deployment.
Okay, sir.
So in case of RESTful services, which method we configure, Ashok? Is it a main method?
Yes. I will show you one REST API deployment also. This is normal Java standalone application with Lambda.
Yeah, Ashok, while configuring the Lambda, the handler thing we have to give like the in.ashok p.lambda.
Yes, sir. This is the class which is available in that jar. You need to give like this only.
So handler name in Lambda we have to give this, right? Handler name.
Yes. Handler name is our class name which is available in the jar file.
Yeah, okay.
So Ashok sir, how
Yep.
to upload that code file in source file in jar?
There is an option code source. Whenever you go to the Lambda function, you will see one option code source. Here upload from is
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, thank you.
Step is after the creating Lambda,
Yes,
right?
sir. Yeah, first you need to create the Lambda function, then go to the Lambda function, code source option. There you can upload your jar file. After uploading the jar file, then you need to change the runtime settings of that Lambda. You need to configure like this: the class name colon method name.
Ashok sir,
Yes.
in the jar file they have multiple classes. At that time, that scenario, what we will do?
You can create multiple for every class, for every method. You need to create a separate function.
Okay. Okay, thank you, sir.
So that's why for large scale applications, the maintenance will be difficult. If
That
you have
one
100
last
Java classes, 100 Lambda functions you need to configure.
Okay, okay.
one question, sorry. Like
Yep.
Sir.
in starting our course, we learned that EC2 is the most famous and I mean useful service.
Correct.
Which we, but in EC2 like we have to manage all the things by own self, service security and all those things. But
Yes.
I mean that also generate bill hourly, and that Lambda also generate bill. So, but I mean, why people don't use? I mean, why people use much EC2 compared than Lambda? What are the main differences?
Sir, application project means not only application execution, right? A project means a lot of infrastructure, Jenkins server, Docker server, Kubernetes server, Sonar server. Okay. So when we are talking about the project is not about only execution part. So lot of servers, lot of tools we need to manage. So I want to maintain a Jenkins server to do the deployment. For that, definitely I need to use EC2 only. I need to maintain Docker server for my project. For that, definitely I need to use EC2. So to set up all the infrastructure for the project, we need to use the EC2 instances. That's why it is very famous. Lambda is directly to execute the code. That's it. Project means not only code execution, infrastructure is also required.
Sir, in third step, could you show me how to create this class name, sir?
You no need to create that, sir. You just configure the class name. Class is already available in the jar file.
Okay.
Sir, I
You
have
just
created
change
it.
that handler. Yeah. Jar file is uploaded in the portal. Download from the portal. Raghava, I'm able to access your application. Julie,
Sir,
I'm able to access.
yeah.
Sir, I uploaded the jar file. After that change, I am unable to get it, sir.
Rishikesh, I'm able to access. Sir, after uploading the jar file, you go here, edit the runtime settings.
Okay.
When you edit the runtime settings, you configure the handler like this. That's it.
What is that?
Manage the time sheet.
Ashok sir,
Yes.
if you write the wrong syntax in the handler syntax, what will be happen?
Your code cannot execute.
Whatever the mention the class and method, it will be.
Yeah, it will not accept. It will not execute that code. If you give correct data, then only it will execute. Otherwise, it will not execute.
Whatever the data in the source code, we must be
Yes.
in the. Okay.
Yes. Okay, I hope you guys are able to work with serverless computing in the AWS cloud. Fine, guys. Good. So tomorrow is our last class on the AWS. Tomorrow I will give you some overview on the networking concept in the AWS, and I will tell you how to make your bill amount as 0 in the AWS. If you get any bill from the AWS, how to make it as 0, that I'm going to discuss in the tomorrow session.
Sir,
Sir,
how to delete this lambda, sir?
Directly you can go to the function and you can delete it.
Okay.
Whatever the lambda function is available, select this lambda function and click on action delete.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Sir, I'm getting internal server error.
That means you did not configure that lambda properly. Try that once again. Delete the lambda function, create properly with the steps I have given. Everybody able to do it.
So please upload yesterday video also. We missed
Not
that.
uploaded?
Not uploaded. Yeah, yesterday
Who will check that?
night
It's
after come
uploaded.
office I tried.
Uploaded, sir,
But
already.
it was not.
Check it once again.
Uploaded, you can check it.
You check now, I think it is uploaded. Yeah. Today's notes also uploaded, guys. Jar file is also uploaded. Please do the practice. Tomorrow will be our last class on the AWS. Tomorrow I will explain about how the networking will happen in the AWS and how to make the bill amount as 0 in the AWS cloud. Okay, thank you. I'm stopping now. We'll meet tomorrow.
Sir, when Angular class will start, sir?
I will update that, sir. I will update.
Thank you, Ashok. Have a good day.
Yeah, thank you guys. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.